Hi everyone and welcome to Cabin Creek Homestead. I'm Christine and this is Twinkle. Twinkle is enjoying some hay. She's going to move the tripod a little bit, which is resting on this top beam. So if you see the camera shaking, I'm so sorry, but that's just the way it is. There's nowhere else I could have perched the tripod safely. Anyhow, Twinkle has a laceration on her shoulder that I've been treating for a couple of days. I don't want it to get infected and I've been packing it with my favorite product, Curacin. This is not a sponsored video. I'm just very, very fond of this product. And so it gave me an idea. Why don't I share some of my favorite things that I keep on hand for small things that require me to give first aid to the horses. I'm not a vet. I'm not a vet tech. I have very little experience medically speaking when it comes to treating horses. So for all the major things, I definitely lean heavily on my veterinarians and my vet techs and a couple of friends who know everything about horses. But for something small like this, I wanted to talk about all the things that I keep in my first aid kit for horses here on our farm. The first thing that I would recommend everybody keep on hand is Curacin. This is like a clay, it's like a mud that has a whole bunch of antibiotic properties to it. This is so helpful for packing a wound and keeping it wet, which is interesting because in humans we really want our cuts to dry out quickly, otherwise they become very necrotic. But keeping the wound wet with this wet clay is really helpful for when they have a small cut. I've got one horse that sometimes picks on her, and so she's been bitten in her butt before, and I had to pack the clay into that cut, and it healed really well. No need for stitches, no need for antibiotics or anything like that. But I think as far as horse injuries go, you're often going to deal with cuts and scrapes. My horses are not stalled. I have to have a really good reason to stall my horses, and usually that is when they need to gain weight, or they need to be on medicine, or they need to stay out of the sun because they have a topical treatment on them, or because they are injured and need stall rest. Most of the time they are walking around. They have about 8 acres, and in that situation we have thorns and briars, and you know they could walk through the brush and get a small scratch on them, or they can hurt each other, or they can run scared and injure themselves in a small way. So keeping something for a topical ointment on them that helps to deal with it addresses bacteria at the source is so helpful. The other thing that I really love is this Wonder Dust right here. This is dirty, but while I was at Tractor Supply this morning, sorry, can you hear the pigs upstairs in the barn? It's too cold for them outside, so I put them in the barn. Stop walking around up there. This has amazing antimicrobial properties to it, like copper sulfate, sulfur, tannic acid, all kinds of things. And what I really like is that it's a powder that comes in this like spray bottle that's really easy to get it into an area. If you have horses that are very flighty, this might not be the thing for them, but if they can handle something, dust coming at them, the only downside is that you don't want it in their eyes or their ears or their nose, and you don't want it in your eyes or ears or nose. So just apply it safely. Let me grab a couple things out of my little bag to show you my other tricks and first aid stuff that I keep on hand. Now, I'm not a truly crunchy mom, but I would say I'm a scrunchy mom. So I like my essential oils, but I really like my pharmaceuticals too. But I do love rosemary oil and tea tree oil for any time I'm dealing with fungal issues of their skin. So I keep this on hand because in the summertime, I don't know why, I've got a horse that just loves to get rain rot. Every time I give her a bath, I give her a scrub down with this. I apply it liberally, leave it on for a while, and then I do rinse it off just because I don't want them out in the sun with essential oils on their skin. There's a few essential oils that are okay for sun exposure, but a lot of them really aren't. So I keep these on hand for rain rot. And I also love to keep Vaseline on me. Vaseline is just a great conduit to essential oils if they are dealing with something like rain rot, and I need like a cream that helps it to really like stick and stay on. I'm gonna use Vaseline. Sorry for how much this is shaking. But I love to use Vaseline as a way to apply and keep essential oils in one place. You know, they're very runny, they're very watery, but also for Vaseline and their hooves, if I'm ever having to treat their hooves and apply something that's like a water barrier because they're dealing with thrush. If I don't have any thrush ointment on hand, by the way, if I do have this thrush ointment on hand, this is what I'm gonna use 100% of the time. This right here, I love it. It works wonders. It dries out the hoof so well and deals with that fungal infection. And then I also, if I have a really serious foot issue that needs to be wrapped up, Vaseline, put all the medicine inside of it. This hoof pack right here is a great it's like a pill for their hoof. Not really, it's just like it packs the hoof. And then if I can, I'm gonna wrap it on with one of these right here. Gotta use duct tape. I see a lot of people using diapers. I've tried the diaper thing, and unless I'm using a butt ton amount of duct tape to keep that thing on there, it really does not work well. If I'm having to treat a hoof like that, they've got to stay in a stall, but they've got to stay in a stall upstairs where it's dry. This lower stall tends to get very, very damp and wet in here. So if their hoof needs to stay dry, I'm very careful about where I'm stalling them so that I'm not contributing to the moisture issues that lead to thrush and all those fungal issues. The other thing that I absolutely keep on hand at all times is saline solution in one of those really big syringes. Mine is super dirty and I was embarrassed to show it on camera. I could wash it out, but I mean, honestly, it's a farm. Not everything gets washed out every single time. If they have some type of wound and it's in their eyes, or it's and it needs to be flushed out before I can pack it full of Curacin, then I will get that saline solution in there. I'll put that nozzle, not a needle, but the end of the nozzle right up onto the wound and just flush it out over and over and over again until I'm sure that there's no residual mud, poop, anything that could get in there to start festering bacteria or something like that. And so saline solution, got to keep that on hand. This is something that I didn't always keep on hand at the very beginning of when I had horses, but after I had an incident with her getting into a patch of yellow jackets, I've kept Benadryl on hand specifically for my horses. I have it obviously for our kids, but her getting into that patch of yellow jackets was so terrifying. For some reason, she just went into shock and stood there, and her legs just got puffier and puffier and puffier. So I called my local vet and I asked them, what can I do? They said, give her Benadryl right away, turn it into a paste, water it down and give it to her in her mouth and all those kind of things. They gave me the appropriate dose for her, and it was so much that if I only had those tiny blister packs, I would have had to run to the store, but thank goodness I had like a big bottle of it because we had farm camp out here, and you know, some kids need Benadryl after a bee sting or something like that. Anyhow, I'm glad that I have a giant bottle of Benadryl on hand at all times, and as well as some molasses, because some horses do not take pills well, but most horses love molasses. The other thing that I kept on hand after that day with the yellow jackets were these foot wraps. They're hoof wraps. They look like just regular show wraps, but these are filled with that blue material that freezes, but not freezes hard, the same stuff that's in our ice packs. The whole leg wrap is filled with that, and it has Velcro straps on it. And so I bought 4 of them, put them in the freezer. They stay in our freezer in the garage. For any kind of injury that that leads to her legs swelling, I use that immediately to help reduce her pain. Speaking of legs and inflammation, a liniment ointment like this one, I happen to have that on hand because somebody gave it to me, and oh my goodness, what a blessing it was to have that on hand when she was dealing with those yellow jackets that had just stung her all over. By the way, it feels amazing on our hands too. I deal with a little bit of arthritis in my hands, and I just remember feeling that cool peppermint soothing sensation on my hands, even though I had washed it off. I quite enjoyed the cooling relief it brought to me as well. Now I've got Twinkle in the stall here because she has got to, I don't want her out in the brush reopening that wound at all. So because she's going to be stalled and she's not used to being stalled, I've got some boredom busters in here in her stall. I'll show you later, but I've got her hay. She's on Timothy and alfalfa right now. This hay is wrapped up very tightly, so it takes her a very long time to eat. The reason that I do that is because if she finishes her meal really quickly, then her brain isn't stimulated, her body isn't stimulated, and her gut digestion will slow down as well. And so by making them, forcing them to eat from a slow feeder, I'm preventing a couple of problems. First of all, if she gets really bored and begins cribbing, she's going to hurt herself. She's going to tear up her stall in here. She's not really a cribber, but I've seen horses be pushed to that because of severe boredom when they're not used to being stalled and then being put in a stall for 4 or 5 days while they're recovering. So the other thing that a slow feeder does is she's used to having 24 hours of free forage because of where she is. If I suddenly take away all of that foraging and then I'm giving her hay and grain 2 times or 3 times a day, her digestive system is going to alter itself based on when she's eating. So if I can replicate the 24/7 feeding as much as possible, that is going to reduce the risk of colic. She is at that age where everything is just slowing down. She's already well into her prime years. She is already well into her silver years. This girl is retiring with us, and I'm on the lookout for all kinds of things that can come into her world because of age. And so I am terrified of colic. I have seen it happen, and prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we do a lot to prevent that. But I also have a couple of things hanging from Triple Crown feed. They're these little things that bob around in the stall, and she has to eat at them. It's very stimulating for the brain. So I'm just trying to prevent her from getting bored, hurting herself worse, picking at herself, and all the problems that stalling an unstalled horse. So those are just the small handful of things that I keep on hand. If I cannot keep them on hand, I know that the Tractor Supply has them quite readily available for us. It's very easy to stockpile a small amount of things from your local feed store or supply store just to help you in the moment of an emergency. There's been a few times that I'm unprepared and I'm really kicking myself later. So I really try to be prepared for anything that could happen. But in the event that you're not able to handle it yourself, I really recommend that you lean heavily on your local vet. Have a good rapport going with them. Establish yourself with them as somebody that pays their bills, that treats the vet well, that is understanding and is respectful of their care, so that they want to make the trip out to you. There's plenty of vets who are abused and not appreciated at all, and making those farm calls sometimes is the worst part of their day, and that should not be for the people that love and take care of our animals. That's all for today's video, and I'll show you a little bit of wound care here with Twinkle, and then we'll see you in the next one. Bye. One thing I realized that this hay bag is really low. It's low enough for her to step her foot into. If you've ever seen a horse with their leg stuck in a hay bag, it is so traumatizing and terrifying. Keeping the bag up high is gonna prevent them from being able to step a hoof into it. When horses want to get more, they tend to paw at the ground. They'll paw at a bucket to knock it over if they're eating off the ground. And so it's just their natural inclination to stick their foot in that bucket and paw their way into it. And then a tangled horse is a terrified horse. So I realized my mistake. I'm lifting it now. Excuse me, darling. Oh, so heavy. Aha, much better. I love opening a new jar. Woo, that's fun. So here's what this clay is like. I love the consistency. It reminds me of playing in the mud when I was a kid. She had a few other scratches on her as well. I'm glad I had to open a new bottle, because this right here is why all of our medicine just looks disgusting after the first use. So you got to see a brand new clean bottle instead of the embarrassing dirty ones in our garage. That's all for our video. Thanks for joining in. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Christmas season, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. I always remember one more thing. After I'm done filming, keep electrolytes on hand. If your horses are having a hard time, or if they've been through something frightening or maybe stressful, keeping electrolytes on hand is going to help to restore a lot of their energy and get them back to normal. A couple of vitamins like vitamin E and selenium are a good idea too.